All right, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay and change of venue. We had technical difficulties over in the Sophie Moise room in the Missoula County Courthouse. So we have relocated to this lovely basement location in our vintage administrative building for Missoula County. So welcome all of you. And again, sorry for the delay. I'd like to call today's meeting to order here in the basement. We have myself, Dave Strohmeyer, Commissioner Juanita Vero, and Commissioner Josh Slotnick. And is there a flag to be had?
There is not.
Well, let's
Can you just do an image of a flag? Sorry.
As you say,
Okay.
under normal circumstances, I would say.
okay, we will skip the Pledge of Allegiance today and move right on to the land acknowledgement. Missoula County acknowledges that this event today takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Are there any public announcements for us? By way of Christine, are you staffing this for us today?
Yeah.
Anything by way of closed captioning? That
Yes, I've
Okay.
got my little announcement. Let me just feeding here so I can show the image. Chris, would you mind, or do you know how to turn on the closed captioning from the computer?
I've turned on the transcript, which folks can see on the large screen.
Okay.
Or something.
All right, get in here. I'll try sharing my screen.
The raise hand and phone needs to work the same way.
Bear with us, everyone, for the announcements.
Closed captioning. All right. You can see it. Okay. So hello, everyone. If you are joining us for this meeting virtually today, instructions for turning on closed captioning are on your screen. If you are joining us in person, we will have closed captioning. There will be an opportunity to speak during the meeting. For public comment virtually and in person, we ask that all speakers today speak slowly and clearly. This helps with the accuracy of the closed captioning. If you're on Microsoft Teams, did we say we don't have the raise hand?
We do.
We do, okay. If you'd like to speak when discussion has been open for public comment, we ask that you use the raise hand feature. This is the small hand button. If you're calling in on the phone, you need to hit *5 to raise your hand. Once called upon, you will need to hit *6 to unmute. If you have questions, find me during the meeting and let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christina.
Yep.
One other public announcement, and this pertains to Indigenous Peoples Day. On Monday, there is a powwow, the Bear Tracks Celebration Powwow at Caras Park. There's a meal at noon, grand entry at 1 p.m. Dancers, singers, drummers, vendors, food trucks, all are welcome. So please make your way down to Caras Park on Monday if you are around. Is there any public comment on items not on today's agenda? And we'll begin with folks here in room B14. If you're here for a specific agenda item, please hold your comments for that time in the agenda. Otherwise, anything else anyone would want to bring up at this time? Anyone online want to comment on any item not on the agenda? Okay. We will move on. Claims received as of September 25th, 2024 through October 1st, 2024 by the Commissioner's Office total $1,516,321.82. We have two public hearings today. The first, and by way of introduction for folks who are not familiar with our format at these meetings, we will begin each public hearing with a staff report. If it's germane to the item, that will be followed by an applicant or applicant's representative making comments. That will be followed by public comment. If the action is ripe for action today, we will then close the public hearing and the commission will deliberate and take action. So for our first public hearing today, which I will open, this is a public hearing on an ordinance creating the Grant Creek Crossing Targeted Economic Development District. We are taking public comment today, opening the public hearing, but not taking action today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, Flana, please fill us in on what's before us.
Okay. I'm Flana McClarty, the Land and Economic Development Specialist here at Missoula County. And I have before you today a recommendation to establish a new Targeted Economic Development District, or TED, in the area known as Grant Creek Crossing, to foster the growth, location, and retention of value-adding economic development projects, and to promote, stimulate, develop, and advance the general welfare, commerce, economic development, and prosperity of the citizens of Missoula County. The TED designation enables local government to address infrastructure deficiencies impeding economic growth. The creation of a Grant Creek Crossing TED will enable Missoula County to fund infrastructure such as transportation, water, wastewater, utilities, workforce housing, and life safety services to support value-adding enterprises that will improve the economic well-being of the area. So, in accordance with state law, the steps necessary to create a TED are first to conduct a review of infrastructure deficiencies, then adopt a resolution of necessity for the area, which was completed by you, the commissioners, at the August 22nd public meeting. The types of infrastructure identified as deficient include transportation, water, wastewater, stormwater and drainage, life safety services, broadband, workforce housing, dry utilities, and other general improvements. The next step is to develop and submit a comprehensive development plan, which is a high-level document that discusses the types of infrastructure projects that are eligible for tax increment financing, and sets forth a series of goals and strategies that Missoula County can undertake to address the infrastructure deficiencies in support of value-adding economic development, such as manufacturing, technology, recreation, and tourism. It also links the effort to create a TED to the overall vision for the county as defined in the Missoula County Growth Policy. To further this project, Missoula County hired Pioneer Technical Services to complete the required comprehensive development plan and facilitate related needs. On October 1st, the Missoula Consolidated Planning Board reviewed the comprehensive development plan and affirmed conformance, including area zoning, with the Missoula County Growth Policy, and provided a recommendation regarding conformance to the Board of County Commissioners. The step today is to open the public hearing and hold the first reading of an ordinance to create the Grant Creek Crossing TED in support of value-adding economic development projects. The next step will be on November 7th. We will have the second reading and then adoption of the ordinance before you. We did have public engagement and a lot of public comment with this project. We met with various taxing jurisdictions that are affected by the potential TED, as well as area developers and landowners. We posted on the Missoula County Voice. We created an engagement platform. And then we published notice for all of our public meetings and the Missoulian. And then as part of your packet, you'll see there is the draft comprehensive development plan, which we published on the Voice page on September 25th. Since that time, based on public comment, we also included a summary of staff recommendations for amendments to the draft plan. And most of those key amendments are updating language in the plan to exclude the term industrial. In 2021, there were legislative changes to the definition of value adding, and they don't limit it to industrial anymore. And so we want to change that reference. There was also some references to multiple fire districts in the plan, and the area is only served by one fire district. So we want to make sure that's addressed. Next, I will turn it over to Brad Archibald with Pioneer Technical Services to provide a presentation for you. You want to?
Come on up to
Come on
the
up.
table. Allegedly, this can pick you up anywhere in the room. So yes, that should work good.
Thank you very much, Plana Commissioners, for having me today. Again, my name is Brad Archibald with Pioneer Technical Services, and I assisted Pioneer Technical Services with me as our lead assisted Plana and Andrew with preparation of this comprehensive development plan. Plana, as usual, has been very thorough, and a lot of what I'm going to plan to cover, she has already covered. So hopefully I can do this relatively quickly as we go through this. So go ahead and advance an aerial photo right there of the Grant Creek Crossing area in the background. Go ahead, Flana. It's going to go.
No way we can dim this. Can folks see it in the back?
Can you see it okay? Okay, good enough.
I'm going to go through the location, talk about purpose and process. Then I will spend a little time going through the contents of the comprehensive plan. What are the goals we established and how are we going to, what are our strategies we're going to use to get there? And then close up with talking about the administration of the TED district if it were to be adopted, and give you a brief summary of some of the engagement we've had with the public and stakeholders to date. That plan, please. So there is the site there at the southwest corner of Reserve Street and Interstate 90. It is 84 acres approximately in size, those 5 parcels within the red outline. To the east, it is bordered by those businesses that front on Reserve Street, those hotels and restaurants primarily in that area. To the west, you have a mobile home court. To the north there, you have a gravel pit. Some of that gravel pit extends a little bit into the Grant Creek Crossing area. Those parcels to the east, I will point out, is the city of Missoula. We're right up against the boundary of the city of Missoula, but we are within Missoula County. There is one development on the site already, and that is up there at the northwest corner. There is a mini storage units, not very infrastructure reliant. So it is out there high and dry on its own, and that's the type of development you would get without investment in the infrastructure in this area. Go ahead, please, Flan, to the next slide. So what is the purpose of the TED? It is a means to develop and fund infrastructure using tax increment financing so that we can allow this area or incentivize this area to be developed in a way that meets the designated land uses that are identified in Missoula County's growth policy. That's what we hope to achieve with establishing the TED. Flan has talked about the process already and the engagement that we've had. There are some dates. If you're interested, you can, I'm not going to bore you with reading off every one of those meetings and every one of those dates. It brings us to where we're at today with this first public hearing and reading of an ordinance to consider for establishing the TED with a TIF provision. So what is the purpose of the actual comprehensive development plan? That is what is in front of you today for consideration. According to state law, the TED must have in place a comprehensive development plan adopted by the local government, you folks, that ensures that the district can host a diversified tenant base of multiple independent tenants and may not be designed to serve the needs of a single district tenant or group of non-independent tenants. We have 5 parcels out there. We have seen some plans from the developer, and I want to get the details of those because those could evolve. I think they are here today and may speak to some of their intent, but this district is not intended to just serve one landowner to do one thing. It's to host a diversified number of tenants of value-adding enterprises amongst them. So the plan itself establishes goals and strategies to rectify those infrastructure deficiencies the plan spoke to support value-adding economic development, and then links the TED to the county's vision as defined in the growth policy. That's an important part of the plan to review and evaluate to make sure that this plan is aligned with what the growth policy envisions this land being developed at. That's eventually to meet the county's goals. Infrastructure deficiencies, Flan has spoken to those already, and as she mentioned, we presented to you and you adopted a resolution about those infrastructure, recognizing those infrastructure deficiencies in this area. Go ahead, please, Flanna. So as I just mentioned, this plan has to align with the growth policy and with the zoning. We have to make sure that those things are all in alignment. So your consolidated planning board on October 1st met and deliberated that very subject in consideration of a staff report on the subject. They concluded that the plan does in fact align with the growth policy and that the zoning for the area also aligns with the growth policy. As you will see maybe on this next slide, that the area is sorry, not a very good slide there. On the left is the land use designation of commercial mixed use, and on the right is the zoning of commercial center. The definitions of those are slightly different because one's a growth policy, one's zoning, but they are aligned and they allow for the same type of development, which is pretty wide ranging within those areas, from residential through light industrial and commercial as well. So what are the goals that we identified in the plan itself? It boiled down to these 4 issues. Promote economic development and support the value-added industry. That's the cornerstone. That's what we're here for. That's why we started this process. What else do we want to achieve as a goal? We want to invest in the efficient delivery of public infrastructure to afford the proper development, the envisioned development of this area. We want to support the development of attainable workforce housing. As we all well know, there's a shortage of it in Missoula County and the state as a whole. The statute defines attainable workforce housing as infrastructure, and therefore it can be funded by tax increment financing. Whether or not that actually happens in this TED I can't guarantee that. That is really up to the developer, but we want to provide incentives in this plan that could allow them or encourage them to include attainable workforce housing conceivably within their development as a county goal. And we want to enhance public safety services. I'll get to that a little bit more here in a moment. Let's dig us a little bit more into each of those goals. How are we going to achieve the goal of promoting economic development? It starts with planning. We can use increment funds to plan when they start to become available. We can target marketing to very diversified businesses. As Flanna mentioned, recreation and tourism businesses are now considered under state statute as value added. And so we can target businesses that are recreation and tourism based or those that support the recreation and tourism industry. The plan tries to make it possible for those types of businesses to be considered and as possibly being defined as value adding and possibly supported by increment funding. Light industrial businesses aligned with the commercial mixed use land use designation are also potential targeted industries, technology-based industries, and sustainability-based businesses as well. What other things can we do within this? We can look for linkages. We're going to develop this area. We're going to have a trained workforce. So we need to look at ways to possibly fund or participate in workforce training and try to develop public-private partnerships to achieve our goals. Goal 2, invest in efficient delivery of public infrastructure. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We need to make sure that we provide all of these infrastructure services to this development, and we want to do that holistically and efficiently. Again, looking for partners, looking for other funding sources as well, and trying to take advantage of economies of scale and do it in a sustainable way. Support development of attainable workforce housing. Add to contribute this to an overall view of attainable workforce housing plans in the county. Identify partnerships again. Invest in infrastructure to support that housing. Develop methods to ensure affordability in the long term. then foster relationships with affordable housing advocates and agencies. There's a lot out there. This is all about trying to give them another place, another piece of the puzzle to try to achieve the goals of providing attainable workforce housing. And the last goal we identified is improve public safety services. This is really in response to the recognition that public safety services, fire services in particular, are asked to take on an additional burden with the development of this area. If it's done with a TED, with a TIF, they have additional work to complete without the tax revenue from that they would otherwise see. So we wrote the plan in a way to allow them to be supported by increment, not by tax mills, but possibly through an agreement with the district, if approved by the county commissioners, to fund them directly for providing those services. The details of that are not in the plan. The idea is in the plan. The details would need to be worked out and then ultimately approved by the county commissioners. So if the TED is created, what happens after that? How is it administered? The key point here is that top box. All levels of development review are just business as usual. There's nothing special about being a TED, and that doesn't give you a pass on any type of subdivision rule or building permits or anything like that. Everything else is done through normal county processes. If someone comes with a request to use increment TIF funding to support a project, the staff will review it and see if it meets if it's eligible per that comprehensive plan to be funded. They will then make a recommendation to the Development Authority Board, who will in turn will make a recommendation to the Council of Commissioners, and it will be the County Commissioners, decision as to whether that is eligible for funding and should be funded. Does it align with the goals? Is it eligible? Should it be funded? So the buck stops here with the County Commission. Many of you have probably seen this graphic or one like it before. This is how the plan is implemented, really how the funds are derived. The little red box on the bottom left is where we're at today. Basically flat line property values and tax revenue from that parcel of land. The TIF is created at the start of the yellow. The life of the TIF, or the TED with the TIF provision, I should say, is 15 years, can be expanded to another 15 years if bonds are sold. Maximum life is 30 years. Once that development starts to happen, that investment is made with some incremental funds, the development starts to happen, the tax value goes up. A fraction of that increment, that increased taxable value, does not get used for the TIF. It is by state statute, it goes to the taxing jurisdictions. That includes the university mills, that includes 1/2 of the school mills, and it also includes any new mill levies approved by the voters during the life of the TED. Those are not included in the increment. Those go back to the taxing jurisdictions. The balance is what is available to the district to invest in addressing infrastructure deficiencies. And then at the close of the TED, that money that is distributed to all the taxing jurisdictions for the mill levies in place at that time. Just kind of a repeat of what I just said about the decisions are all made by the county commission, supported by the county staff and the Development Authority Board. There is a requirement for an annual work plan and budget, so your staff will come up every year with a projection of what the increment will be. They'll have an idea of what types of projects are out there and might be being considered, and then we'll develop a budget that will be approved by the authority board, is my understanding, Development Authority. And then they also are required to submit an annual report to the Department of Revenue and to the public, so that it's available for the public, so they can see how those funds were spent. Just real quickly, for your sake, we've got many of the stakeholders here today, which I'm very glad to see. But the stakeholders obviously are the government agencies that are involved in reviewing and recommending and ultimately approving. The taxing jurisdictions themselves, which in this case for the schools is the Helligate Elementary District and the Missoula County Public Schools, the Missoula Rural Fire District, the Urban Transportation District, and the county themselves. Obviously, the landowners are stakeholders in this, and the Reserve Street Public Working Group has been engaged and has offered some opinions or thoughts on this proposed TED, which I will very quickly on the next slide try to summarize for you. Well, this is almost a repeat of what was earlier. Sorry, I got ahead of myself a little there. In June, we met with the landowners, we met with the taxing jurisdictions, and we had a presentation to the Development Authority Board. We had some follow-up meetings with the fire district. Staff had some follow-up meetings with the fire district to discuss how this was progressing. We did publish a notification in the Missoula County Voice as originally on August 21st, then made the plan available in September. We had the infrastructure deficiency meeting in August, made the comprehensive plan the first draft of it on the 18th, that was updated on the 25th. And then we published notifications. Did have a meeting also with the Reserve Street Working Group. Now we're here to these public hearings. To date, we have heard concerns from the school and fire districts, valid concerns about the impact on them from a TED. And the lack, for the fire district in particular, I don't want to take words out of their mouth because I suspect we're going to hear some more about that today from them. But lack of stations and staffing and resources near the proposed TED. We've also heard from the public keeping it vacant is not good public policy. We've heard concerns about maintaining infrastructure in the future once improvements are made. An ongoing issue for any infrastructure that is developed. We're going to, of course, need to be able to have to budget to maintain that infrastructure in the future. We've heard concerns over the impact of congestion on Reserve Street. That circles back to that statement I made earlier about any development having to go through the normal permitting and approval process. So that would have to be studied and approved before we just start dumping a whole bunch of new traffic onto Reserve Street. And we've heard about the opportunity that some folks see to connect trails in the Grant Creek area through this area to the city and vice versa. There are more specifics about those included in your packet that Flannery prepared. I think that is all I have. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Wyanna, anything else? Andrew?
No, thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I'd like to open it up for public comment. If you want to comment, why don't you come up here closer to the microphone, grab a chair, say your name for the record, and please share with us. Well,
Did I give us on you? Go ahead. All right.
Mr. Lindler was fishing for his notes there.
All right. Well, anticipated, here is the fire district that's slated to serve the TED as proposed. So good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Paul Finley with the Missoula Rural Fire District. I'm the chief of that fire district. I'm here today to make comment on the proposed Grand Creek Crossing TED. The Missoula Rural Fire District has seen a significant increase in growth over the last several years. So much so that our already stretched resources are busier than ever and preparing to be busier yet. Although we are good at overcoming the challenges we face, those challenges come at a cost to the fire district and therefore ultimately the taxpayers of the fire district. Generally speaking, the taxpayers of the fire district fund the demand that they are seeking. This may be in the form of a fire prevention discussion, fuel mitigation, WUI concerns, subdivision or plans review, and of equal importance or greater importance, emergency response. However, we are facing a potential sixth TED within our fire district. The TED have placed a significant unfunded workload and liability on the fire district, which is impactful to our taxpayers that fund the fire district. This unfunded workload and liability comes in the form of planning, sprinkler reviews, fire inspections, code enforcement, and certainly emergency responses that require expensive equipment and highly trained, talented workforce. The proposed Grant Creek Crossing TED provides an opportunity for the MRFD to be part of the solution to attainable, affordable housing, jobs, and additional businesses within the community that we call home. However, we cannot do so solely on the tax rate provided by the Bear Ground as described and the backs of our taxpayers that fund the fire district. Today, I ask on behalf of the Missoula Fire District that additional discussions for funding and assessments agreements be in place before adoption of the proposed TED. We are aware of speculative discussion regarding contracting, of which I would caution you. Resources and staffing are finite within the area, and using resources to augment one area ultimately makes the same resource available to another area. In closing, growth comes at a cost. The Missoula Rural Fire District cannot continue to absorb costs of the TEDs without a comprehensive plan in place to assist with revenue for facilities, staffing, and mobile resources. One of the additional points that I would like to make is that the reason for our ask today is that we find something definite is that we have as mentioned, 5 other fire TEDs within our fire district. And to date, we have not come to any sort of agreement on how those are handled from the fire district perspective. Additionally, we have had a request in on the Bonner TIF for at least a couple of years that has gone unanswered to date in entirety. So our concern is that we will continue to serve without any resources for the fire district. So thank you, commissioners, for hearing from us today.
Thank you. Hang on just a second. Quick question.
What's the ask on the Bonner TIF?
We asked at the time that we were constructing our fire station for some assistance in doing so for a dollar amount. I don't have the exact information in front of us, but as you're aware, that fire station has been built now for a couple of years, and our ask went in as we were proposing that.
And you asked this of the Missoula Development Authority and they didn't respond to you?
No response.
Not a no, not a yes,
That's
nothing.
correct.
Okay.
So that's our concern moving forward is that, look, we can say this all day long, but until there is something definite in hand, the fire district it's costing the fire district and thereby the taxpayers of the Missoula Fire District a great deal of money to move forward on these.
So
Okay.
Paul, I do want to say, I believe that there are solutions to this. There are solutions involving partners like the city. There are solutions like what, where there that Brad described about using increment. And I would be all in favor of figuring out these solutions as part of this, and in no way would move forward without figuring those things out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I feel like this is our opportunity to right the ship on the 6th one. You know, this has gone on too far for us at the fire district not to be answered. We just, it's unsustainable for us. It's impacting our resources each day. And as mentioned, I would caution the idea that a different fire department responding into the area is a solution. That solution, proposed solution, then takes away that resource for the rest of the taxpayers, in fact. So
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, quick.
So, and this is something I'm not an authority on, so. But my understanding is response and proximity are tied together. The responding entity and proximity to the call or the fire issue, the disaster, the emergency,
there
are
are agreements
linked,
in place
right?
to do so.
Okay.
So,
More to come on that.
leave it at that.
Thank you. We do have a hand up online. Let's go to Molly Blakely.
Thank you. My name's Dr. Blakely. I'm the superintendent of Hellgate Elementary. I appreciate Mr. Finley's comments, and I echo many of the concerns at the school district level. I'm going to start by saying I'm at the end of my career, so this is probably not going to affect me as a school leader. But part of my job is to protect the school district moving forward. And there are not benefits to a TED to a school district. When you talk about putting in housing units, if you put in 100 housing units in that TED and we receive 50 students from that area, the cost to the district to educate a child is anywhere from $60,000 to $150,000 a year, depending on that child's needs. We could have a child with severe special ed needs and need occupational therapy, speech therapy, private transportation, a one-on-one para, and the cost of that child, we have no fiscal support coming from the TED. You magnify that over a 15-year period of time, that is incredibly significant for a school district. So when Mr. Finley was talking about the tax revenue, it's similar for us as a school district. So again, I echo his comments. I think that we have to be a voice at the table. You know, you mentioned that there are ideas, but no details. I would challenge us all to come up with the details because a school district can't take the hit. As you know, we're not being funded. The legislature is not working in our favor. We're getting a, you know, rumor has it, a 3% inflationary cost increase. We all know that inflation is much more than 3%. So school funding currently is not where it needs to be, and this will make an impact. I'm not against growth. I'm not against planning, but there has to be some pretty systematic plans for how this will help and not hinder both school districts and fire.
Thank you. Let's go back to the room. Mr. Lindler, did you have something you want to share?
Yes, I'm Kurt Lindler from Grant Creek, and I sit on the board of the Grant Creek Trails Association. And about a decade ago, we began meeting with folks who were considering purchasing this property. And at that time, we were told that the owner was expecting there would be a trail built along the west side of Grant Creek. We don't want that trail to be built in the riparian wildlife habitat, but we anticipate it could be built just outside the tree line. And it would allow quite possibly a way that residents could get either into or out of Grant Creek without having to face Reserve Street. Reserve Street on a bicycle is pretty tough. And this property would allow a pretty pleasant trail route all the way from I-90 to Schramm. And then from there, we would begin picking up the city trail system. So just like to encourage you to make sure that the trails are considered a beneficial use if this TED is approved, and look forward to seeing continued improvements in access for bicyclists and pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Kevin Davis.
Hi, thank you, commissioners, for allowing public comment. Can you hear me? You can?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. I wear a few different hats. I'm here as a volunteer today. I'm at my workplace running my small business in the North Reserve area. My hat today is with the Reserve Street Public Working Group. I was pleased to see that on the presentation list today as part of the public engagement process. We did have a meeting with that group just a few days ago, and we heard from Chief Finley. We also heard from Dr. Marley Blakely, and I share their concerns. And I have a basic understanding of TIF and economic development. I served a term a few years ago in the Missoula Economic Partnership. I was president of the Grant Creek Trails Association a few years ago when we paved the trail 3.3 miles from I-90 up almost to Snowball Road with no TIF, with no subsidies. We did have some match private funding, and also in collaboration with Missoula County and the city of Missoula. So a trail can be done without TIF. In the couple of meetings I've been at on this TED subject, I've gathered so far that there seem to be more costs than benefits for the community. I empathize with Chief Finley on his shared concerns today. In addition to that, we as homeowners and business owners in the area have seen skyrocketing homeowners insurance because of those limitations that Chief Finley spoke to today. Dr. Blakely cites increasing costs at the school. So I guess in summary, the greatest concerns we have are more to do, which we did not hear much about in today's presentation, how that tax revenue would be redirected away from fire protection, law enforcement, schools, and other public services. And that's those are grave concerns for folks that live and work in the area. We'll be hosting Chief Finley in November to expand more about his concerns, and we'll be able to relay at a more two-way street public engagement opportunity at another Reserve Street Public Working Group, and I'll encourage you all to be part of that. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you. Yes.
Jeff Smith, WGM Group. Appreciate Kevin's comments and Dr. Blakely's, as well as the rural fire department. Wanted to just take a couple moments and talk about the concept of taxable value per acre as it relates to this site.
And are you representing yourself or a business?
WGM Group. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. I said that, but appreciate the redirection there. So, as Brad mentioned in his statement, the required public infrastructure to develop the site at a meaningful level doesn't exist.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, so this area lacks the public infrastructure that's required to develop it at a meaningful level. And I'll explain what I mean by meaningful. I think it's important to note that land of this size in the urban core is very scarce, and it's also very precious. I think it's worth noting it is economically viable to develop the site in a land intensive and sprawly way, as you see with the storage units that Brad mentioned. That type of development's not in the best service of the community in terms of economic development. In order to optimize the community's benefit through more intense development, additional support's needed to address the infrastructure deficiencies. I think the economic benefits to the community from developing the property in an intense fashion are probably best summed up by the concept of taxable value per acre. Land-intensive, sprawly development doesn't often generate enough taxable value per acre to pay for the services or the maintenance and operation of the infrastructure needed to support just itself. So you end up with this sprawl condition where, for the long term, there's a forever subsidy from other property owners in the area to pay for the infrastructure, services, fire, and schools to support that site. On the other hand, when a property is developed at intensity, its taxable values per acre is such that a tax surplus is created. So allowing that property to subsidize services and infrastructure maintenance throughout the rest of the community. That's the fundamental purpose of TEDS in Montana, is addressing infrastructure deficiencies so that properties develop in a way that serves our communities through enhanced taxable value per acre. So it becomes an engine for Montana's economy rather than another instance of land-intensive sprawl. I think when we think about infrastructure deficiency, you've got roads, sewer, water, several, and trails as well. The ability to dedicate land and build a trail rather than developing in some type of sprawled, land-intensive development becomes possible.
Thank you. Thanks. Additional public comment. Come on up.
Watkins, stream restoration project manager for the Clark Fork Coalition. And I've been working on the Grant Creek project. I actually started with being a teacher at Big Sky High School. I'm a little involved with that too in the career and technical education program. But now I've moved to the Clark Fork Coalition. And so we kind of put together these comments to other comments that have been provided. So our thoughts are, when using taxpayer money to enhance private property, the investment should serve the greater good by building on existing public investments and exceeding current zoning regulations and water quality standards. Currently, the property is one of the last open spaces in the middle section of Grant Creek. Significant public and private resources have been invested in restoring Grant Creek corridor. The middle section is particularly vulnerable due to heavy development pressure and low income of the residents. EPA has defined this area as environmental justice area with low-income area. Additionally, the area's infrastructure needs repair because of the original design did not account for the high flows of Grant Creek and natural process of sediment transport. Basically, as the creek comes out of the mountains, naturally, as it hits that valley floor, it should spread out and braid and drop its sediments. It's been channelized and essentially made to continue to flow. The two bridges and multiple bridges within that corridor are now filling up with sediment because the sediment doesn't have anywhere to go. And so some of the infrastructure needs repair because of that original design. So essentially, Grant Creek is currently listed in the water quality standards as impaired due to sediment, nutrient, and temperature. A lot due to the development in and around the area, and not allowing the stream to go through its natural processes to kind of deal with these things. So just some specific comments related to the TED and the TIF. Pages 15 and 17 of the plan cover transportation infrastructure. We suggest adding a bullet point stating that the bridge planning needs to consider lengthening the bridge so the abutments are outside of the floodplain, allowing for a 100-year flood to pass under the bridge. Pages 19 through 20 specify the rules for the MS4 stormwater program, and note that there is a TMDL, which is a total maximum daily load. So DEQ has gone through the process to say, all right, the stream is already messed up. These are the reasons why. And we need to say no more pollution can go into the stream. And so being part of the MS4, which was in the TIF, says that as we develop how we can basically not add any more pollution. It's kind of like, how can we minimize the damage we've already done? And so it is stated to satisfy the development requirements of the stormwater management program and associated county regulations, stormwater infrastructure, including curbs and gutters, dedicated swales, and likely restoration detention facilities will be necessary. It should be added that stormwater control should address the impairments of the stream for nutrients, sediment, and temperature, with the restoration of the creek to restore floodplain connection and vegetation. Also, bull trout, a threatened species, passage, especially during high flow events, should be addressed. And building and pavements were allowed right up against the stream on the other side. So considering that, and then the infrastructure causing that damage. Future infrastructure planning needs to be addressed with alluvial nature. That's like the movement of the sediment, like Grant Creek. And then to align with goal number 6 for the Missoula County growth policy, it says to embrace emerging economic trends and new technologies that will prepare Missoula County for the economy that will exist in 20 years. New technologies that incorporate natural processes to attenuate high flows and sediment transport should be used. These technologies are natural looking and aesthetically pleasing. So the proposed trail will boost emerging economic trends by providing places where people can access nature during the workday. That is similar to what you were talking about. If you build something really, nice, and it will be that driving force for that area. When I was working as a teacher, we took the kids out to Grant Creek. I was teaching an engineering class and how to, put these things in, and all the kids, oh, I live right here, and I live right here, and the Grant, just the access to that is really important, and to have that whole trail connected, kind of give them that connection. And so this will fulfill goal number 7, sustain and promote the land and resources-based industry and agriculture, timber restoration and recreation. that are part of the local economy and heritage. And goal number 12, promote healthy, active communities. We applaud the addition of the trail, but more land than just the existing buffer specified by the county and floodplain should be allocated to minimize disturbance in the protected area. The trail should be located outside of the buffer to accommodate these needs. And then the last part is the TED should also include the vision and strategy that was approved through an MOA. So the county and the conservation district has signed this vision and strategy, and it goes through just like the different goals. So specifically on pages 10 and 12 is where, you know, this specific area of Grant Creek and the Grant Creek corridor are addressed. So I have those for you guys.
Thank you. Do you have written comments you could leave with us, or could
I
you
do.
provide us electronically?
Thank
Or just give them to Christine. All right, thank you. Additional comment from anyone in the room? Yes, come on up.
I am just here representing myself as a somewhat ignorant taxpayer, even though I did work as a tax assessor for a while, so I do know what TIF and all of that means. So I just had a few questions.
And if you could state your name for the
Dara
record.
Wilson.
And this is
I live out-
mainly to receive comment today as opposed to back and forth Q&A.
Oh.
So if you have specific questions that you want to pose, you can get those out on the table and we can have staff tie in with you later. We're not taking action today on anything, so.
Okay, so I can do it without giving an actual question. So when Brad was talking, he said that it was poor public policy to leave it vacant, and I'm just wondering why that is. It's been vacant for a while. And then I was wondering what the consensus of the public comment was so far. I know me personally, and a lot of other taxpayers that I know are wondering why we have to keep subsidizing commercial development and what happens if this TED doesn't happen. Can WGM Group not do it without the TED? Is it just impossible? They don't have enough money, or because other development happens without it? And there's always the promise of the workforce housing as if it's, oh, we're gonna vote for this because it's a good thing for the community. But this doesn't seem like it's a good thing for the community, at least not at this point. We just got a 4.2% tax hike. And we don't, so what will happen is this TED will go through, it will pull, then because this tax increment financing is going to that district, it will then pull for the school and other people, the school from the school district here. So then other taxpayers, it has to be funded from somewhere. So it'll just come from a different district, and then the fire will be down, and then we'll have to, it'll go out to the heartstrings of the taxpayers. We need to pay for our fire. Well, the money was pulled from the fire in the first place by funding the TED. So it just seems like it's the never ending circle. And for sure, doesn't need to happen now when everybody is just so strapped for money. So that's all.
And what's your name again for the record?
Dara Wilson.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. Additional comment from anyone? Either online or in the room?
I do have a-
You have a question?
oh, I just want to say something, but I will.
Oh.
when the time is right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. So if you look around the greater Missoula area, tax increment financing has been a spectacularly successful tool. You go out to the Bonner Mill, look around our downtown. Since I've lived here most all my life, I remember what these places were like when they were in deep, steep economic decline. Because of TIF as a tool, they have more than rebounded. They're actually fantastic examples of economic development. I also understand that there are real impacts. And we are not looking at this correctly if we look at this as a binary yes or no choice. That is not the way to look at this. I believe the way to look at it is how do we mitigate the impacts? If there are impacts to the fire district, how do we mitigate those? Impacts to the creek, how do we mitigate those? Impacts to Reserve Street and traffic. How do we work on this? And we mitigate those impacts by working together. And what I fear is happening right now is we're setting up an antagonistic, adversarial, us versus them kind of situation. It's a win-lose fight. That is not the right frame for this. The right frame for this is how do we work together to get the most economic development done, to get workforce housing done, to care for taxpayers, to make sure the fire district has what it needs, to make sure that the reestablishment or redevelopment or care for Grant Creek has what it needs. And we get to that by talking with each other, not by fighting with each other, not by us, them. This is not a yes or no binary thing. This is a problem to be solved. And I look forward to working on this over the next couple of weeks. And I believe there is a path through so that we can reap the benefits of TIF the way all these other TIFs in our area have. And like I said, they're spectacular examples. One other thing I want to say, sorry, you should never got me started. Okay. Cost of insurance skyrocketing, super high. There was a New York Times article just a few days ago about this. This is not because of a fire department being a little too far away from a burning building. This is according to what I read in the New York Times just a few days ago. For all of us who buy insurance, everybody could have different insurance companies. If you peel that back, the myriad of insurance companies are owned by an even smaller group of companies, which are even owned by a smaller group of companies that insure homes and businesses nationwide. And we are in a period of time in this historical moment of repeated natural disasters. Most of the heart of Asheville, North Carolina is now gone. As we speak, Florida is being crushed. We could be like, wow, really glad we're not there. My insurance is fine. No, your insurance is owned by the same company that underwrites Asheville, North Carolina, and Florida. And your rates and my kids' rates are going to go up because of it. This is happening everywhere. That's what I got out of this article. So sure, I hear what you're saying, Kevin. Yeah, insurance is a terrible problem. This is not going to mess with insurance. Hurricane Milton is going to mess with insurance. Random tornadoes are going to mess with insurance. The flooding of Asheville, North Carolina is going to mess with insurance. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has not spoken? Before we do any repeats here, anyone who has not spoken who would like to testify? Okay, Kevin, you get the last word on this one.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just wanted to respond to some additional comments, which is really helpful. I didn't hear any fighting or antagonistic words during the public discussion, but we all interpret things differently. The homeowners insurance rates, yes, the New York Times and outside influences do play a factor, but also what does play a factor, and I can give you names and numbers of insurance agents. They have told me and other neighbors that are elderly on fixed income, that their homeowners rates are going up because of two primary factors in Missoula: the distance from the responding fire station and the distance of a fire hydrant to the home, both of which play disadvantages to a lot of us in Missoula County. And I too look forward to ongoing public engagement on this. In fact, our Reserve Street Public Working Group meets most weeks on Fridays at 9 a.m. Tomorrow, we're hearing from City Councilwoman Mirta Becerra about transportation priorities and projects for the next year. She will tell you she hears often about transportation issues that are worsening, not improving, but worsening in this North Reserve area because of increased growth. And I'm not a NIMBY, but I'd like to think of myself as a YIMBY, yes, in my backyard, when it comes to smart growth, thoughtful growth, growth that benefits a greater community, not just certain landowners and development teams. So I hope that is all factored, and thank you for the additional words.
Thank you, Kevin. Flana, so when are we taking this up again? As a reminder.
So we're scheduled to have the second hearing on November 7th.
November 7th.
And just for your reference, in order for the TED to be created by the end of this year, to have a base year of 2024, we would have to have the second public hearing prior to November 30th. that is our deadline for the second public hearing to create it this calendar year.
So in other words, our next hearing is scheduled for November 7th, but we would have to take action by the 30th
Correct.
in order to meet the end.
Notify the Department of Revenue by December 31st, and they require a 30-day notice. So this is kind of our deadline if we want this created.
Can there be a third meeting after the 7th?
Sure, we can.
Yeah.
Or shoehorn it into an additional public.
Yeah, we do have to
Hearing.
have a decision by the 30th to
Okay.
have 2024 be the base year for the TED.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments today. That will be super helpful as we begin to refine the document and the path forward. So if folks have additional comments that you've thought of after the fact or that you think of in the days to come, please do put those in writing and shoot them our way and get them into the queue. So thank you. The public hearing will remain open on this. You don't have to leave. There's more fun and games to happen. So,
And get elected, but.
no, it's like that. We're alive. Okay, the next public hearing. Thank you everyone online who joined us for that one.
Thanks, Lana.
Thank you. The next public hearing is a subdivision proposal. This is a request to approve a two-lot subdivision with two variances, the so-called Kimosabi subdivision. And we'll begin with a staff report from Tim Worley, presumably, since you're at the table, Tim.
Yeah, for the record, I'm Tim Worley with Lake Development Sustainability, and I'm here to present Kimosabi subdivision.
Thanks, Mom.
This is a two-lot minor subdivision request from Spanish Skies LLC, represented by Tony Hilliard of Voight Engineering. The subdivision is located near the intersection of Highway 93 South and Blue Mountain Road. This is a graphic of the subject property. It's actually in 3 lots of record currently. Total acreage is just shy of 6 acres. Property includes a mechanic's shop and a lot intended to be vacant. That's how the subdivision will be divided. For this graphic here, the mechanic's shop is on the westernmost of the 2 lots, and then the lot to the east is lot 1. That's proposed to be actually to have commercial condos eventually, but it will initially be vacant. So this is the layout showing a potential future condition that includes 30 or so commercial condos. That's not part of this request today. The request today is for a 2-lot subdivision that actually sets this up as a future condition. There's an existing well that serves the mechanic's shop, and there will be one new well that will serve the expanded development, presumably the commercial condos, although again, that may change over time. Access per the regulations is actually limited to Blue Mountain Road. If you apply both the zoning regs and the subregs, they require access only off the road of lesser classification. MDT, however, believes that limited Highway 93 access improves circulation in this instance. So if we apply both the zoning regs and the subdivision regs, they would require sole access to be off of Blue Mountain Road. A variance was requested by Voight Engineering on behalf of the developer on the zoning side of the equation to allow for one access point on Highway 93. That's where that check mark is. The plan is actually to close off one of the 2 Highway 93 access points, and of course, Blue Mountain Road would remain as an access point. After hearing testimony about MDT's support, the Board of Adjustment felt that this was a supportable variance. You'll see, commissioners, there's actually a separate subdivision variance that you can weigh in on today. And staff is in support of that variance to again allow for one access point onto Highway 93 in addition to Blue Mountain Road.
And it's just a right-hand turn, correct?
Yeah, it would be right in, right out off of, onto Highway 93. And what I've attempted to depict here, commissioners, is what the problem that MDT recognized is that there would be a queuing issue if there's only a single access point from Blue Mountain Road. It would potentially cause a backup of traffic onto Highway 93, because if there's folks stopped at the signal at Blue Mountain Road and you're not able to get into that one single access off Blue Mountain Road, you could actually cause a backup of traffic onto the highway. So those are my little Pinewood Derby car illustrations that show how that backup might happen. But if you open up the access to that right in, right out scenario, you actually allow folks to have two ways in and out, which we prefer for safety reasons anyway. And you just have fewer queuing issues at the intersection. So we do have a recommended condition for Highway 93 to be a right in, right out facility, and then one of the two access points that's now being used would be closed off. So some conditions of approval: we are recommending that the access road be paved to a 20-foot width to meet the subdivision regulations. There is a sidewalk variance request. Technically, the regulations, because this is in the urban area, require a sidewalk on both sides of that access road. The proposal is for a sidewalk on one side, which we support. So we recommend approval of that variance. And I must say that's a correction, commissioners, to the staff report. And I'll give you some findings as to the why. We think that a single facility works in this context, and there really is no public health and safety risk with a single connector out to Blue Mountain Road. Facility will connect with the planned Blue Mountain Road facility. There's actually a 15-foot easement being granted by the developer on the south, this would be the southwest side of Blue Mountain Road. And eventually, we hope to see a non-motorized facility, but that will not be built by the developer. That's sort of in the plans for the county to complete that facility. And other facilities, including pedestrian facilities, will be required with the commercial development at the time of zoning compliance review. So the network you see, when you look at the graphic that shows all the commercial condos, most of that, whether it's the parking or the sidewalks, will be created at the time of zoning compliance permit review. We did receive one public comment. It was actually over the phone. A nearby resident expressed concern over potential commercial building heights, maybe screening out his view. He's kind of to the south and west of this location. The same resident expressed concern about his well and whether water usage here might impact him. I must note that there's a condition that the combined use on the property remain at 10 acre feet or less, that this use must be metered and reported to DNRC. So commissioners, there are your recommended motions. Staff recommends approval of Kimosabi subdivision.
All right, thank you, Tim. Tony, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think Tim did a great job. Thank you, Tim. I'm Tony Hilliard, Voith Engineering, for the record, representing Spanish Skies LLC. Pretty straightforward 2-lot minor subdivision that really has two goals, and that is to one, put the existing mechanic shop, EQ Auto and Diesel, a local owned business on its own lot, and then provide opportunity to further then create commercial condos on the other lot in the future. And so we've worked diligently with the planning department to kind of best these variances. We worked with Parks and Trails on dedicating additional right-of-way for the Blue Mountain connector trail, as you see along Blue Mountain there, which is a future county trail project. And also MDT, working with them with the right in, right out onto US 93 there. Yeah, be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay,
Oh, sorry.
before we do, this is an opportunity for public comment. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone online who would like to comment on this proposed subdivision? Okay, seeing none. Questions from the commission? Anita?
Yeah, just help me understand again, Tim or Tony, what you said about the sidewalks, variances are, at the time of zoning compliance, that will address any sidewalk needs. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So it's fine right now to just do one side, but when this actually is all built out and then there'll be enough sidewalks there that the east side not having a sidewalk isn't an issue.
Well, I don't know that that will necessarily.
Oh, because you don't even know what it's gonna look like.
Right.
Right.
This is conceptual at this
Yeah,
point,
yeah, got it.
but like having enough sidewalks so that when you come in and do park 90 degrees, that you can step out of your car and there'll be a walkway in front of the condos. That will all be dictated at the time.
Yeah.
Of zoning compliance. But we're not really sure about that other side of the road.
Because you don't know what it's gonna look like,
Yeah.
because we're not at that point in the process. Got it. Thank you. I just needed to
We do want
walk through that.
we do want to provide, connection to that future trail. That's very important to development goals.
Yeah.
Good questions. Tony, so I asked this question the last time we met. Why again is this named the Kimosabi subdivision?
Yeah.
And I've got to say, in the year 2024, I'm a little bit shocked that someone would propose such a thing, but what's the reason?
Yeah, no, it's one of the developer's dog's name, and it actually means friend. And like I said, we've been working on this project for about 2 years now, and by no means thought it was a derogatory term, and I haven't had any public comment on the names until now. So we'd like to continue forward with the name, but if it is an issue that you feel strongly about, we do have a secondary name that we can just name it Spanish Skies subdivision.
I think that would be a wise choice. I have a message out with the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes on their formal position. I unfortunately do not have a response back from them today.
By no means, it wasn't intentional.
No, and I get that there's no intentional offense implied, but it sounds like the commission would highly recommend consideration.
Good, I think should just be good judgment.
Yeah, and the only thing I would attest to that would be that if we could possibly, not further delay the process, just
Oh,
simply because of the name.
Of course,
name
of course.
change.
I don't think that would delay the process.
Not at all.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, let's cue those motions up again, Tim.
I move to approve the variance from table 3494 requiring sidewalks alongside, can't read, requiring sidewalks along the onside road.
Is there a second on that?
Yes. I thought, do I do the second? No, second. Yes.
Okay, any further discussion on the first motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll move to approve the variance from section 3.4.6.2 requiring access from the lower class road when more than one road abuts the subdivision.
Second.
Further discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Why don't you just say the
Oh.
new name in there?
I move to approve
Spanish Sky?
Spanish Sky subdivision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law and the staff report.
I'll second that.
Further discussion on this? And I thank the developer for being flexible enough to
I mean,
consider an alternate.
no way imagined negative intent.
Okay, yeah, that was not our intent.
For sure.
So thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Okay. It is approved. Any other business to come before the commission today? If not, we'll be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry for the relocation to the basement.
Do you know who's